friends, book lovers, Lori here. I'm back to do another video for you all. Today's topic, because it is February, we are in the midst of Valentine's Day, is some of my favorite couples overall that I really enjoy reading about. Some of these are new, some of these are old. I have a couple of couples I want to talk about you. I won't be talking spoilers, but just why they remain my favorite to this day. Some of these I did read a while ago. Some of these are some newer additions, but I hope you guys like this video, and I would love you to comment who is your favorite couple. I am not going to talk about Ron and Hermione in this video because I feel like I talk about them in every single video that I do when I talk about couples. They are definitely a mainstay. Hold on, right back there. And I'm also trying my hardest to give some new authors some new buzz that I feel like deserve it. So that is why I'm going to kind of limit talking about them. But know that Harry Potter is always going to be my favorite series of all time. But I really don't want to support the creator as much anymore. But just know that Ron and Hermione is always a great couple. But these are some authors that I think do it equally well, if not better. I just want to give them a little bit of love. So the first book is actually a book that I read in 2020, and that is Today, Tonight, Tomorrow by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This is her first foray into, like, fun contemporary, I'll say. There's always, like, the hard-hitting side, which I know she has a few books, but this one follows Rowan and Neil, and it's definitely hate enemies to lovers, and that is a trope I can really get behind if it's done right, and this is one that I think is done right because you really feel how their rivalry has become so apparent. But you basically follow these two characters. It's set over like a 24-hour period, which again is one of my favorite tropes. I love books set over a 24-hour period. It has another one of my favorite tropes where it is like a scavenger hunt or an adventure, and another one it's set in the aftermath of high school, which again, these characters participate in a competition called Howl, which reminds me so much of when I used to play Assassin at my summer camp that I used to work at. And they have to kind of go around Seattle trying to get Howl, and they wind up competing together, but they're also sort of playing against each other. And it was a great read. I also really like that there was moments of like found documents kind of sprinkled through the whole book. I really, really enjoyed this one, and I definitely kept it. I actually did I did a big book clean out in the end of the year. And this one I wound up keeping, so I'm really happy with this one. I definitely want to check out her backlist as well, but I'm really excited to see what she writes next in this fun genre. And yeah, I really loved Rowan and Neil. I also love this book because it had excellent Jewish representation, and you don't see that a lot in YA contemporary. I really like that, but this couple just was so much fun. The only thing I think that would have made this book slightly better is if we would have got Neil's point of view. But overall, really liked it. Loved them as a couple. Loved how they transformed over 24 hours. And it was really, really great. Next book that I'm going to chat about is not a shock, but I did want to rereading this last year, and that is Cress by Marissa Meyer. This is the third book in her fairy tale retelling series, and I have to admit, still to this date, Cress and Thorn hold up for me. I really like Cress as a character. I love Thorn. This one is a Rapunzel retelling, and I just love them. I think that they're great. I think that they really bring out the best of each other, and they work so well together. And I just love, like, a character that is, like, kind of like a bad boy and tries to fall for, like, the girl next door. And I mean, obviously in a fairy tale sense, but I really like this couple. It still remains one of my favorite books in that series, and I really loved how this book transformed them, but also just how they changed and grew together. They remain one of my favorite couples. I really like them. And I also, this year, I was able to read the graphic novels that kind of, like, looked past winter, and I'll ultimately really enjoyed that one as well. Seeing them again was lovely, but Cress is such a unique character, dealing with a lot of stuff that happened with when she was being held prisoner by Lavanna. But then you have Thorn, this guy who's basically like a thief and a con artist, and when they get together, it's just it's like perfect chemistry for me. I really like this couple, and I really just liked rereading them this year. I read it for the Time Warp YA Book Club. Link will be in the description box. We do like we try to tackle older series throughout the year. We're doing Graceling this year so far, so I haven't started that one yet, but that's on my list. But I really just like this couple. I think all of the relationships in this book really were captivating and exactly the type of like fantasy romance I needed. But Cress and Thorn definitely still stand up, and I really, really like this couple. Um, and I'm excited to see what Marissa Meyer writes next. I still have to finish one of her series. But other than that, I really like this. I liked Cress and Thorn as characters, liked how they came together, and I liked the retelling aspect. It was super fun, and I really like this one. It's not going to be a shock to anyone. But that is Geekerella by Ashley Poston, or Poston. I can never say her name correctly. But this book is a Cinderella retelling, and it follows Elle and Darian, I think. Yeah, Darian. And she is very involved in, if you haven't know what this book's about, then you've been living under a rock. But she's basically very involved. They're both involved in the Starlight fandom. Darian is actually going to be the actor that's going to be portray the commander, and their paths wind up crossing during Excelsior Con, and they wind up writing to each other, and it's just a great read. I really like this one. Definitely stands out. I've reread this book quite a few times, and it still stands out. Their romance has so many like subtle elements of the Cinderella myth, but also take it new and make it like a new version for the stories. I just really like their characters a lot. I think that they complement each other super well, but it also like deals with some harder issues of the entertainment industry, especially in Darian's story. And there's a really, just like story wise, there's a very, very cute Dash It Hound in here, that Orwena drug that I really, really like. And it's just great. I really like them as a couple, and I think this book is what a retelling should be. It kind of takes the myth and incorporates it to fit our world. I just like them as a couple. I think that their progression, not only through this book, but also through the other books that we kind of see them in, like Princess and the Fangirl and Bookish and the Beast, just puts a smile on my face. And I think this one is definitely like my favorite in the series. But them as a couple is just something that I really, really like and aspire. Like, I just enjoy them a lot. It's a super fun read, super fast paced. It definitely kicked me in the emotions a few times. But the one thing I liked about this book again is that it does have both characters' point of views, and that tends to be something that just highlights the story for me. But yeah, I really wound up liking Geekerella. Really enjoy is The Unexpected Everything by Morgan Matson. I've read this book so long ago. I'm actually due for a reread. But it basically follows this girl named Andy. Her dad's a state senator, and she has her life set out for her. But everything goes wrong in a couple of different ways at the start of the summer, and she's forced to get a job walking dogs. And then she winds up coming across Clark, who is nothing that she expected, and it kind of turns her life upside down. This remains one of my favorite Morgan Matson books to date. I love Clark and Andy so much, and it just really puts a smile on my face whenever I reread it. This book is also one of the first books that has such a developed friendship group that I really took heart in. But the romance is something that I loved, and I just love reading it. It's definitely a more of like, I wouldn't say it's emotional, but it does deal with some harder topics. And I just thought that it was a really interesting. There's something about Clark that you don't necessarily expect when you start this book, and I really wound up liking it. The dogs are a great addition, and it's a great. If you have not met Andy and Clark, I absolutely recommend that you check it out, and it was great. The last book I'm going to talk about, I'm also going to talk about the favorite tropes that I look forward to reading, is Gemina by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, and this is Hannah and Nick's book. Guys, I love them so much. I've read this book like 4 times. I'm probably going to reread it at some point this year because it fits a prompt for the Avengers reading challenge that I'm doing. But oh my god, this is like the definition of hate. It's a combination of like hate to love, but also friends to lovers, and I love those two tropes. I'll talk about those in a little. But this is the second book in the Illumini File series, and you follow a bunch of different perspectives, but you mostly follow Hannah and Nick in this book. And they're basically on a space system from hell. There's a lot of stuff that goes wrong. Their paths wind up crossing, and they have to save the day, and they have to save each other. It was great. I think that this is high stakes romance at its finest, but it did not feel insta-lovey to me because they have a history together, and that's something that I really, really crave for in my YA romances. I don't like insta-love. I do like a relationship that's been building and building and building. So no shock, I really like Gemina. I also love the other books in the series, but this romance definitely stands out to me, and I really hope you'll give the series a shot, but you definitely have to meet Nick and Hannah because Nick is so snarky and Hannah's so snarky, but they work so well together, and they hopefully are going to save the day in this one that I really enjoy. But I just want to tell you some of my favorite tropes for contemporary reads, books that I am more likely to pick up. So overall, when I read contemporaries, I tend to like cool concept novels. Now, what does that mean? I like a book that has like a cool concept. Like if it's like set like at like a summer camp, or if it's set at like a wedding planning place, or if it's set at like there's like a fun job, or if there's just like a fun concept, I'm more likely to pick it up. Save the Date by Morgan Matson is set over a long weekend at a wedding. That's cool to me. Another one that was kind of like that was 10 Blind Dates by Ashley Elston, which is a Christmassy read that's set over the 10 days before Christmas, and there's 10 blind dates. So just fun things that just like are unique, or a book that's set at like has like a scavenger hunt element to it. All of these elements come together to make a YA book that I'm more likely to pick up. Also, I do also really like hard-hitting contemporary books that deal with like harder issues. So I have like a balance. I like to read hard-hitting ones. Definitely read more fluffy and funny ones last year in 2020. And that might just been because of the year, and it was a hard year for a lot of us. So I just was kind of craving some fun, lighter reads. And that's mostly what I read. I'm trying to have an equal balance this year of to read some hard-hitting contemporaries this year, but also some like fun and lighter ones. But that's one trope I really like a fun concept novel, one that's just like interesting, has interesting concepts that I haven't heard of before. Tweet Cute was another one that was really, really fun to read. Chasing Lucky had another fun concept that I really liked. So those are just some fun concept novels that I also really enjoyed. But trope-wise, I hate instant love. So instant love is like the worst to me. So that is why you rarely ever see me read like paranormal books, because I find insta love is super prevalent in that book, and I have a hard time buying into like an insta love romance. It just doesn't do much for me. Like I really struggled with like Twilight back in the day. I really struggled with a couple of those other series where you met the guy and you instantly fall for him. That's why I like in fantasy romance series, there's a big build up. Like, you start in book 1, you start in book 2, and maybe by book 3 or 4 they're together. Sort of like Percy and Annabeth from the Percy Jackson series. It took them a ridiculous long time to get together, and I thought that was such a good decision on Rick Riordan's point of view, because I was so invested in their romance at that point. Say what you want about J.K. Rowling, she also did that with Ron and Hermione, and those are two of my favorite couples of all time because I was able to buy into those. So long-term, slow burn romances in fantasy series are definitely what I prefer in my fantasy reading. Going along that, because I do like that, I tend to like relationships in contemporary YA that have some sort of relationship. So may it be like enemies to lovers, where the enemies to lovers, they actually have like a history and it's been years in the making, and then it kind of turns to love. Love that. Some of the ones that I read recently that were like that were Today, Tonight, Tomorrow by Rachel Lynn Solomon. What's another one with enemies to lovers that I read recently? It's If I'm Being Honest by Emily Weberly and Austin Sigmund Broga. That's another one that had like a love to hate, friends to lovers romance, or lovers to friends. You know what I mean? But that's another one that I really liked. I'm trying to think of some other ones now that like I'm on camera. I can't think of any. But that's like, a long-term stuff that they have like the relationship to. I really like that, and I tend to crave that a little bit more. So definitely like, you've been enemies for a while, and then you kind of become lovers because the history is there. I guess for me in contemporary books, I need to know that the history is there. That's why one of my least favorite tropes in fantasy YA is when the new guy gets the girl, because I'm like, oh, come on, can't the old guy get the girl? So that's why I sometimes struggle a little bit with fantasy romances, because I always pick wrong, like without a doubt. Whenever I read a book, always choose the wrong side. I've said this before in like 1,000 videos, but it really is true. I always pick the wrong relationship. And then kind of another trope that I really like is friends to more. And I, again, I see that relationship a little bit less, I'll say, but I do say it in contemporary YA. It's rarely ever happens in fantasy romances because it's just not a trope that's super popular. In that, I've read like 2 books that have had it. I read The Princess Will Save You in this one, and Ignite the Sun last year that had it, and I like those books a lot, probably because they played into a trope that I really liked. But again, that's like the familiarity with these characters you really, really bleeds through. So yeah, those are just some of the romance tropes that I tend to really, really like. I'd love to hear in the comments what you like, and if you like insta love, that is awesome. I'm so happy for you. I just struggle a little bit to feel connected to the characters, but let me know in the comments what are some of your favorite couples and what are some of your favorite romantic tropes, and I'll talk to you guys for my next video.